Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are live.
We're here.
Well, welcome you all to the Doc Bookshop Live. We are in conversation with the awesome author today. Her name is Beverly Byrd. This is her beautiful book, With the Feather. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about that feather. And so before we get started, though, I just want to make sure that we are working on all of our channels. First, I'm going to give a shout out to our in-studio audience. Woo! And then I want to make sure that our Facebook is working and our YouTube. So give me a minute while I do that. And while I'm doing that, you can also check your channels and make sure you share. Share this on your page, share this with others because this is going to be a very interesting conversation about DEI. So, and you know that's a hot topic right now. Hot topic. So I'm going to make sure we are live and working because, I have done a whole live and I had no volume. So right now, that's why I stopped what I'm doing.
Volume is important.
Volume is very important. And so that's why I take a moment to make sure our channels are effective and going. So give me 1 minute to make sure there's Facebook. Okay, I hear us. Yeah. Okay, and let me make sure YouTube is working. Yeah, I don't play with this anymore because that was just not good. So, well, hold on. I can figure this one out.
Oh, it's go back. Let's get you smaller.
Thank you. Teamwork make the dream work. There you go. Okay. Oh, good. Okay, we are good. All channels are working.
Awesome.
So thank you all for joining us. Definitely tune in. I'm going to get back to our Facebook one because that's where we get our comments. So let me get back to that. All right. Okay, so so definitely share this. I'm so excited to be in conversation with you. I've been looking forward to this.
I'm so excited. I mean, talk about the word excited. I'm just like on the inside going, yay!
I have been waiting for this moment. You know why? Because first of all, I love your book cover. Like this is such a beautiful book cover. Like it's very attention getting.
It's attention getting, and it's the art, and it has a story in and of itself.
Yeah. So I can't wait to delve into this book. Before we do that, tell us about you, Miss Beverly Byrd.
Yeah. Okay. So I am, of course, Beverly Byrd, and I am a mother, a grandmother, healthcare professional, going on nearly 4 decades now. And then so the things that are relevant in my life, I felt like I just needed to share those stories. And, I've seen a lot and heard a lot and done a lot in healthcare, and those stories as they come to mind, I won't remember them all, but just looking back over my career, that's kind of one of the things that inspired me to write the book.
Okay. Yeah. Wonderful. Now, are you in the Fort Worth area, or where you reside? Where you at?
I'm just all over.
I'm all over. Okay. All right.
But mostly Mansfield.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, I'm excited that you're here. So let's get started with your book. Now, I think the best way to do this, are you going to do a reading from your book, because we're just going to break it down by chapters?
We can just do. I only plan to just read like a little section that I have here bookmarked.
Okay, well
but you tell me.
I want you to do a reading a little bit later, but let's delve into the book, okay? And so let's start with The Journey Begins. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so the journey actually begins with me wanting to become a rad tech and not knowing what all that entailed, and at the time that I actually got
into... That's a radioactive...
Oh, yes. So to break
technology person.
Yes. So when I say rad tech, most people in healthcare, you're going to know what I mean when I say rad tech. But it's a radiologic technologist. Back in the day when I started in the 80s, we were called rad techs or rad technicians, back then. So it was like, I'm not a technician. I don't work on cars, Most people would ask me that, like, they would ask you, do you work on cars? I'm like, no, there's no such thing. So then we went to, changing that to medical radiologic technicians and putting the medical piece in front of it. But what really started my journey was when my mother got sick.
Oh.
Really sick, and she was gone for a really long time. So one time I was at the hospital with her, and there was this technologist that came in to do a portable chest x-ray. And this person was super nice, super attentive, very humble and kind. And at that time, all I was really thinking was, I just want my mom home. I just want her well. But this person made me feel like it was going to happen,
That's
and it
good.
was going
Okay.
to happen soon. And then that little glimmer
Very
of hope
encouraging.
was very encouraging and made me wonder, about, the field of healthcare. And if I could get in the field of healthcare, what would it be? Because I had no idea. My dad was trying to encourage me to be a nurse, be a nurse, be a nurse. I was like, yeah, no, that really doesn't spark a fire in me to have to. And this may or may not sound, don't judge me when I say this.
Okay.
I don't want to have to go back into that patient's room and spend that much time with that patient every day, because I'm an empath, and I know that it would emotionally take so much out of me I wouldn't have
Oh
that
yeah.
to give when I got home.
Hmm.
So doing the job that I do, medical imaging, I know that I can go in, I perfected the exam, and I can go in and get a lot of exams now, after 40 years, done in 3 minutes and be chipper, cheerful, and give my best self,
Hmm.
to every patient, regardless of their race, their age, their color, their creed, their sexual preference. So that's kind of what got me into it. And
Okay.
so
Okay. So
yeah,
so you never know the impact you have on people. I bet that person didn't
no,
realize that she or he inspired you to go
absolutely,
into
absolutely.
medicine.
And as a educator
You
myself,
just never know.
and now I can see it as an educator myself in a local college. I've inspired patients and people that I've met in regular everyday life
Hmm.
to enroll in college to become radiologic technologist.
Okay.
So so
You just
so
said,
it's, I
wow.
mean, again, right now I still love my profession wholeheartedly, and would do it all over again.
Okay. All right. So now, I'm just curious. Let's go back a minute to your title. Let them. I don't know if I even said the
Oh
title.
yeah.
Oh gosh. Let me. Okay. So her book is entitled "A Black Woman's Radiology Revolution." Let them see you sweat. Okay, a
So
DEI
there
perspective.
you go.
Okay, so let's. I'm curious about the "let them see you sweat" part.
Let them see you sweat part. That is the part where when we think about revolutions, in revolutions, you sacrifice, you sweat. In college, I blood, sweat, tears, literally. So I gave that sweat. I put that sweat equity in. When we talk about building businesses or raising families or raising children,
Mm,
we put that sweat equity in.
that's true.
So when you say let them see you sweat, when I say that, let them see you sweat, because that's how we know that that's part of the journey, part of the process, part of the
That's
winning.
good.
Yeah,
Okay, that's great.
yeah,
Yeah, thank you for breaking that one down for
yeah,
me. You're right.
yeah.
There's a lot of sweat equity
There's a
in
lot of sweat equity in that.
what we do. Okay. Okay, let's get back to the journey. Okay, so all right, so wonderful. That's how your journey started. Okay, so the white uniforms, black sheep, and tokenism. What's happening here?
Well,
What's happening? White uniforms, black sheep, and tokenism.
when you're a woman of color, I won't say, I can speak when I say black woman, um, because that's what I am. But when you're a woman of color and you're the only one in the room of color, then at some point you wake up and go, oh, this is about tokenism. This is not really about them actually making me feel like I belong or that I'm included. So being in enough of those rooms and having enough of those experiences, you realize that, oh, this isn't about that. It's about checking a box or making it look as if though, oh, we're not racist, we're not prejudiced, and we're not trying to exclude anyone. So that's what that.
So okay, so let me ask you this. So after 40 decades in the medical field, So did you ever feel like you were included or that you were, you know, you know, a part, or did you just kind of still have that tokenism?
Well, yeah, no, there were periods where, when I talk about in the book that, I was manager, I was leadership for 12 years, nearly 12 years. So, in that sphere of leadership, of course, the hospital went through several leadership changes itself. And there were periods during that time that I felt very included, uh, and invited to the table to help make the decision. I was
Mm-hmm.
able to. I had people ask me, "Well, why won't you leave? You're good. Why don't you leave there? You know, it's a small. You're not getting paid what we get paid out here in the real world." I'm like, "But I'm in the real world, and I have a handpicked team of people that I have chosen to be my staff, right? And we work well together. They all feel that they're
Value.
valued and
Mm-hmm.
that they belong. I have had administrators step up for me and stick up for me and say, "Oh no, she's this, she's that, she's the one." Right. So there are those times and periods in my career, that there were people that said, "Hey, yeah, no, she's legit."
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. The challenge of being a woman of color and in leadership.
Yeah, again,
You
we went segue right into it, but that's again, that's the thing with being in leadership. You run into these challenges of, um, oh no, she's just a DEI hire. Well, my answer to that was, where was DEI when I was taking that registry exam? Did DEI sit at the registry exam? I mean, I don't know. Just ask me, where was affirmative action when I sat for the registry exam to get a higher, or to get an additional certification on top of the certification I had. Where was DEI when I got my GED? I'm a GED graduate. Yes, yes, this is true. But from the GED section, I'm like, where was DEI when I was taking that complicated radiologic medical technology exam to say that I am a board certified person who knows what th're doing? I now have credentials. DEI wasn't there,
Mm-hmm.
So, um, that's where I was with that.
Okay. 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 Let's go into silent battles. Find your strength in the shadows.
There are some silent battles when you work in healthcare. I think I talk about in one of the chapters in the book. It's not this chapter, where my very first clinical experience is where a Caucasian Army veteran declines to have me perform his chest X-ray. And it took me aback because, at that, in my 20s, yeah, a woman of color, and coming up through Jim Crow and Jane Crow and civil rights, I'm that age, right? So I was born in the 60s. I was raised in the 60s and 70s. And so it wasn't the first time I dealt with it, but from my perspective back then was like, but why am I having to battle this when I'm the caregiver, when I'm here to help, right? So I struggled with that for a little bit. And fortunately for me, I had good mentors. I had a very good mentor, Miss Flo. She came in, she took over that exam and said, "Hey, you know what? We're here to help. But if you don't want us to help you for whatever your reason is, basically, we can put you back in the hallway and you can wait until we can get somebody that you prefer to help you." And with that, I struggled with, am I how often am I going to have to deal with this, because this is
Mm.
inevitably going to happen again. So I had to make it up in my mind to figure out, okay, you're here to help, but you're being rejected simply because of something you can't control, which is the color of your skin. And I'm not so sure that it wasn't the fact that I was female. So there's the two things. So with that, I'm like, I'm going to have to fix that in my mind, that if it comes up again, that it doesn't irritate me, because it was just a minor irritation. Uh,
So what ended up happening with that? So how did you all handle that? I mean,
well, you know what?
did you end up assisting him? Did he get over himself?
He got over himself because I stepped back and let the mentor person, take charge. So she walks in, takes charge with her. I mean, she got military background, so she walks in like, Sergeant Flo, sir, basically, you have a choice. With a smile, she says, you have a choice. Basically, like I said, was saying earlier, you can let me take care of you because I'm here to help and she's learning, or you can go back in the hallway. And at that point, considering his options, he was like, well, no, I may as well let you, go ahead and finish. So he allowed her to finish. And I just stepped back and watched her, how she handled him, how she gave him commands, basically. Because again, you got to remember, this was a military person. So military person to military person, she could offer that to him also, where I couldn't at that time. So there are several components happening there. They're both speaking the military language, but he's fully not completely accepting the fact that the exam is still being done by a Black woman because Miss Float was Black. So, there we were, learning. There I was learning anyway, from a mentor who was in the profession, and I was grateful for that. Grateful for that.
Okay. Okay, from salary cuts to demotions to social bias. What's happening here?
Well, there was that period of time when, like I was saying earlier, in leadership, they have a tendency to not value people of color sometimes. They have a tendency to not want to promote people of color. Because sometimes,
Go ahead.
DEI, it is not really about being unjust. DEI is about being just for everybody, not just certain individual.
There it is. Yes.
Right. So in looking at creating a just work environment, when you're being asked to do the same work but take a pay cut and not get any credit for it, in lies the problem. Because you're not asking other folks to take a pay cut, but you're only asking me to take a pay cut.
And so that happened to you?
That happened to me. Absolutely. I was asked to, well, not asked, but I was told basically that I was taking a pay cut. And reason being was, because it's the best thing for the company. But I'm like, but the supervisor leader in the surgery department not taking a pay cut. So why am I being asked to do? Okay, so in this pay cut, am I going to be having a change of title? Am I going to be doing less work? Am I going to be, no, you're pretty much going to be doing 99.9% of the same work that you've been doing. But you're just going to take a pay cut. Like, but why? Why?
Okay, and so how did you navigate that? Did they still do the pay cut?
So they did the pay cut, and I said, okay, I'll tell you what. Since I don't agree with the reason why your justification, or you're trying to justify why the pay cut needs to happen, I'll give you a year. And their justification was that because the numbers were low in my department for exams. And I said, well, tell you what, I'll give you a year. If my exams are not back up within a year, to a level that they were cut, then I'll just figure out how to maneuver around and move on. A year later, the exams were back up. I had proven the point that it really wasn't about the exams. It was about how they were calculating the exams, right? So that because they had started combining the exams into like making, instead of splitting the exam. So we do, like, if I can explain this, say it's a CAT scan, computerized tomography. It's where they kind of lay you on a couch and it takes you through the little donut and brings you back out.
Mm-hmm.
So they were counting an abdomen and pelvis exam as one exam, as opposed to counting it as two. So when you start to finagle numbers and misalign stuff, and then looking at my sister hospitals, right, was another thing that I brought into consideration. I said, looking at my sister hospitals, their exams have fallen off by a certain number also. But my sister exam departments were not affected. It was just me, right? So and that's a good thing about having allies and then mentors and people of other races and colors within your company. You get information from other folks going, well, no, they didn't cut mine. No, they didn't cut my salary. And no, we're still doing the same. And no, that whatever that
Right.
XYZ was that affected your building affected ours also, right? So knowing that, I'm like, putting that together, I said apples are not adding up. Apples are not oranges and they not strawberries and cherries. Okay. So I'm like, I'm gonna prove to them that it's not the numbers. And then after that, if I don't get my salary back, then that's when I decided I'm gonna file an EEOC complaint because I deserve what I deserve. I didn't work this hard to come this far to continue to be discriminated against.
Now, okay, let's just take a break. And okay, y'all. Again, thank you all for joining us. I'm in conversation with Beverly Byrd. She's the author of A Black Woman's Radiology Revolution. Let Them See You Sweat, a DEI perspective. And we're talking about basically this is a memoir about her experience in just healthcare and just her life and just uh, what she called her blood, sweat, and tears.
Blood, sweat, and tears. Literally.
Literally. So and so we want to make sure you stop by the Doc Bookshop, go to our online, thedocbookshop.com, get this book, add it to your library. This is a must read, and to be honest, this is a very interesting, touching story because I want to know, as you talk about just your experiences in the healthcare field, with what's going on today. How do you think? Because right now I'm wondering, do we still have the EOC office?
Yeah, oh yeah, the EEOC is very much it's alive. It's still there, and again, this administration can't take certain things from us. Like affirmative action laws are still going to be there, or policies. Your federal,
I don't know. They're pretty vicious. We're dealing with some vicious people.
Absolutely, they are. But it will take more than their 4 years to dismantle and get rid of civil rights laws and federal laws. These things are still very much in place, and that's the wolf tickets that they're trying to sell people. That these agencies are not there, going to be there for you. But the biggest impact that the federal employees are having the biggest impact when it comes to EEOC complaints and concerns. Private sector employees, in which we all do, still have our federal Title 173. We have all of our civil rights laws that are still in place that they have not taken away and cannot take away. It will take them more than their 4 years.
Yeah. Because so I'm sorry you had to go through that, and so of course, but I'm glad that they, after a year, I mean, you got your payback. So
yeah. Because I mean, and then after a while, and this has been so long ago, that what I found that when you follow through with filing your complaints, they try to say, okay, we're going to have mass layoffs. Sometimes when you see these mass layoffs, it's about, okay, this person filed an EEOC complaint. They're not going to say it, but or a National Labor Board complaint or a whistleblower complaint, Texas Workforce Commission complaint. There are a lot of complaints that you can file when you know that you've been mistreated and you've got good documentation, right?
And we need those organizations.
We need those
organizations because let's just face it, people don't do right.
They do not.
So that's why those organizations are there.
That's why those organizations are there. That's kind of why DEI was kind of like a movement. Okay. DEI is like a movement to affirmative action because they knew that corporate America didn't always treat people right. So with their corporate greed and just their mistreatment and discrimination against folks, these agencies are out here as a help and a resource to you. At the end of the day, sometimes these layoffs, like they're doing now, we're seeing it in the news. What are these people doing that are getting laid off from the federal government? They're turning around and filing lawsuits because, again, what have we heard? These people that are getting fired should not have been gotten. They should not have gotten fired because there was no negative mark. They were doing their job. Like I was. I was doing my job. No write up. Doing my job, right? So at the end of the day, when you file that EEOC complaint or you file that lawsuit or you challenge that arbitration, you have a right to do that. And you should, because that is the only way that corporate America is going to realize that
they can't just do whatever.
They just can't do whatever.
They act all willy-nilly.
Exactly. and the thing about it is when you give employees a sense of belonging and that you're treating them just and fair, they don't have all of this confusion in their culture or having to spend money on a bunch of lawyer fees to defend themselves.
Right.
So DEI is relevant, and it is a space where you're just trying to create a just environment for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times you'll look and see when it comes to promotion, where affirmative action will get you hired. DEI is what helps get you promoted in corporate America. Because if you look, statistically, it bears out that the C-suite belongs to what? White males. White males. And then even though a female may be, regardless of her color, and then because we all know that statistically speaking, Black females are the next highest educated group of folks. Well, he got the job because of who his dad plays golf with, not necessarily because he was qualified for the job, or that might have been the balance. Female A is just as qualified as female B, and male B, because he's a Caucasian white male and plays golf with, the CEO's son. Well, that's how he got the job. Well, technically that's a DEI hire, because that golfing and that nepotism or something of that along those lines helped that person get the job when you had two other candidates that were just as qualified, but you couldn't take the piece of the golfing out and decide based upon merit.
Okay. All right, well, let's delve back into the book. Thank you all for joining us. Because you got a couple of chapters I'm gonna get through.
Okay.
So let's talk about my rights versus dreams, goals, workplace nightmares. What's going on in that chapter?
Well, in that chapter,
my rights versus dreams, goals, workplace nightmares. You had some workplace nightmares?
I did have some workplace nightmares, but
you did?
I don't exactly remember what I put in that chapter.
Okay.
But what I can tell you, one of the nightmares was when we had the Oklahoma City bombing. And I think that may have been what that chapter was about. No one was expecting that a terroristic act was going to change our lives that day. April 19th, 1994. I worked then at a hospital out in the suburbs, and I also had a part-time job.
Were you in Oklahoma?
I was in Oklahoma during that time.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it turned my dream job into pretty much a nightmarish event, because that day we had an influx of patients that had not been for our training, we have regular annual disaster trainings. So we had just had our annual disaster training 2 months prior to the bombing. And so the day of the bombing, when that happened, everybody was just running around in total chaos. It was total chaos. Even as far out as my hospital, which was, in the suburban area that I was working in at that time as a rad tech. But the thing that I found from that is, yes, I would have the nightmares, right? Mm-hmm. From having to deal with so much chaos in that one instance of that one day. But what got me was that there was no real provision of mental health that I needed, that I felt like I needed back then, looking back, hindsight, of course. that was appropriate for the complexities of what had gone on in my life, with the bombing, and then instances that had occurred in my life prior to the bombing. So when you compound those things together, it's like, when is the nightmare going to stop?
Mm.
You know.
And did you ever get some, help?
Sure.
Did you get?
Yeah. So the hospital provided all of us and me with a psychotherapist and or a psychologist. But the thing was, all they wanted to do was prescribe medication.
Oh no.
Yeah. So we're going to give you the Buspar, or the Wellbutrin, or Paxil, whatever it was. And I'm like,
no.
I took one dose of that stuff, and I was like, who is this person? Oh, what is going on here? Like what is going on in my brain today? Because this is not working for me. This is like
right. Yeah. And sometimes you need to talk through stuff.
Sometimes you just need to talk through stuff.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, drugs is not.
Drugs are not the answer. And then, but when you've got and this is just my opinion, what I felt like at the time, a mental health professional that just really is just not in tune to what you're saying or what you're asking or what you're telling them.
And maybe that person was on overload too, though. Maybe it was a lot going on. It's like, what? I need help.
Exactly.
So, let me give y'all this because I need help.
Could have been. But that's where I learned journaling. That's where I learned self-affirmation. Like, those skills are so important. Like, if you don't want to mental health medication to be your go-to, journaling, self-affirmation, meditation, these things are real, and they really work when you apply them properly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do you include that in your book about meditation?
I do.
Affirmation.
There's some stuff in there about that.
Wonderful. Okay, let's go to Beyond Privilege: The True Faces of Systemic Inequities. Okay, so Beyond Privilege.
So my thought process there is,
and you got to deal with a lot of systemic inequities.
You
though.
do.
I mean, it runs deep. I mean, I think even 1619 Project kind of talk about that, because everything's literally a lot of stuff traces their history back to slavery, and just a history of it. And so a lot of things are happening. I mean, it just runs deep. I don't even think people realize some of the stuff that they do that is connected to.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So what was your experience when you talk about Beyond Privilege?
So what comes to mind?
The true faces. You're talking about the true faces of systemic.
Right. So in that truth, and I believe that they believe this wholeheartedly, that in their privileged mind, that DEI means that it wants to take away from their privilege, when it doesn't. It just, the equity part or the equality part in DEI really just says, I don't want to take your privilege from you. I just want to come up to the same level of privilege that you have.
Yeah, or I just want you to stop oppressing me.
I just want you to stop oppressing me.
That's what that means.
That's what it means. That's all it means. Let's start it out let's start everybody. What comes to mind is like when you're running a race. Like, everybody knows Sha'Carri Richardson and how that racetrack looks, or Olympic racetracks look. Mm-hmm. Those lanes start out at angles for a reason. You have the inside lane, which is shorter.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You have the outside lane, which is longer.
They almost start the same.
They
run a different race.
They're running in the same race, but in order to make it equitable, and I'm not taking any privilege from you, person on the outside, the inside, the middle. I'm just making the race fair, right? Mm-hmm. Who doesn't want to work in a place where the workplace is fair and equitable? Who doesn't want to be in a society where it's not fair and equitable? That's what we all, I think, really want. We want that.
I think people
fairness
in their right minds.
Okay.
But there's a lot of people who are not. I'm just gonna say who are not in their right mind, because I do believe there is hope for them. I don't know, but I just don't think. Wait a minute. I got. I'm sorry. I just don't think everybody feels that way. I think. I mean, I wish that was the case, but I'm coming to realize that people thrive off of other people oppression and depression. You know,
Yeah.
And as sad as that is,
It's true. It's true. Some people, they don't feel tall until they make you feel small.
Right?
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
And that's sad. That you have to be a bully like that. That's really a bully.
As much as we talk about it,
that's anti-bullying is. Remember, they used to have this big anti-bullying campaign going on. We need to start that back up again because that's what's really happening.
That's what's really happening. That is,
really you've been a bully,
happening.
Like really, like. Mm-hmm. Can I just have my lunch?
Can I in peace? And quiet if I choose peace. Or if I want to listen to some Tupac or Mozart, don't disturb me.
Right. And so it's like, okay. So anyway, so all to say that I do agree with you, but there's some people I wonder, unfortunately that they're not.
They're not all there.
They're not all there.
But
and if they are, they're just evil. There are some people who are there, but they're just blatantly evil. And I hate to say that, but there are some bad people in the world.
But that goes back to that, especially in America, the colonialism. Just look, when Christopher Columbus came over here, he discovered what? Like there were not people here already. Right. I mean, you have to think that that's ingrained somewhere in their ancestry, right? Because at the point that you come to a place that is inhabited by people,
right, and you claim that you discovered it.
You claim that you discovered it. It's like, okay, so there's something really wrong there.
Instead of saying, "Oh, I just bet these friendly people, whatever, I discovered it."
And not only did you discover it, you fought for it, and then you decided that you're going to make it incorporated, and you're not really a country, you're a corporation. And there's that whole mindset that is ingrained in people, that because they are a certain color, they are privileged to XYZ, whatever that is. Not they're privileged to be able to go into a store and not be followed.
Right. And they may not have any money, and they may be stealing, and maybe. But because I'm privileged, you're not going to watch me. You're going to watch this other one over here who's working and got money. And
exactly. Or because when they walk into a store, they're just going to assume that you're the help and not the owner. Or they're going to assume that, you work there when you're shopping. Mm-hmm. Some of these things are ingrained, and it's just, and I feel like the more we have these conversations, the more we educate people. Because the only reason why they don't get that DEI is literally for everyone is because they have not chosen to come into the knowledge and understanding of it.
Mm. Okay, that's good. Okay, so let's talk about laughter in the face of adversity. Finding joy. Now this is key. Finding joy in diversity.
There is. Okay, so the story that comes to mind to me in my book is I think there's a story in there about these robots and how the robots are going to be used to Elon Musk's robot. Did you see those? There was a video out the other day where there was a whole 2 blocks worth of them just going down the street talking to folks. But at the end of the day, who can afford them? They're $20,000 and $30,000. So the average person is not going to be able to afford that. But when you're sitting there as an employee, how do you discriminate against a robot? Because a robot can be any color, just like a human being can be. So, but if you look at Musk's robots, they're generally white with a black face. So how do you incorporate that into the workspaces? How does that look on
okay, so his robots are, I haven't seen that. So his robots are white with a black face?
The majority of them are white, some sort of plastic of some sort. And then they have a black face that doesn't have, any real distinct features. but it's like black plastic, like a plastic,
Okay.
not a blackface menstrual kind of, not that kind of blackface. It's kind of a dark,
Mm-hmm.
a dark gray shaded piece of plastic to
You're right.
no real features to the face.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm reminded of one story that we had, and we were going to try to figure out how to make our own, culturally, um, cultural day to celebrate amongst the leaders and the managers. And then one person said, how about we have a national cookie day as our celebrated day, since we can't agree upon, the Hispanic day or the African, Black History Month, or, Women's Day. So let's just have cookie day and just make it cookies. Like, okay, that's pretty benign, but there are just things that we may or may not want to be making jokes of, and then there are things that, hey, if I don't laugh about this, I'm probably going to be crying. So finding the humor in most things, or a lot of things, can sometimes be the thing that gets you over the hump, right?
Mm. Okay.
So sometimes laughter can be therapy.
Laughter is therapy.
Well, yes.
Yes. Definitely got to laugh.
Yeah. But we have to be in this age of being politically correct. So you kind of have to know your audience. You kind of have to know your person.
When to laugh.
Or, you may have to, it may be an internal joke that you may not prefer to tell at work or in front of a certain company. You know what I mean? But there are times when the laughter does need to happen.
Right. And I think you can find joy and diversity when you just create the culture where everyone appreciates and values everyone.
Sure.
I mean, I think there's true joy in diversity, because I would want to not have one group feel bad, and you just want everyone to feel good.
Sure.
So anyway,
one of the things that I'm reminded of about DEI, kind of akin to going to a house and getting invited to a house party. So the diversity part, and someone was telling me this the other day, and I remember it. The diversity part is you got invited. The inclusion part is you got asked to dance. And I mean, the equity part is you got asked to dance, and the inclusion part is you got the mic and started rapping, or the inclusion part is you were able to ask the DJ for a specific song. So I think that in that you can find joy and relaxation, because that's one of the things I do. I dance, I social dance, and in finding that joy and laughter.
You do the boots on the ground.
I'm not that big of a line dancer. I know. I was intrigued when they were having the lesson last month at the African American Art Museum. But I'm old school. Give me some electric slide all day. Turn on that electric slide, and I'm there.
I'm kind of with you on that part. Yes, too much movement for me.
Yes,
I can't remember all that.
I can't remember exactly.
But anyway, let's get back to our thing. What were we talking about? You got me all lost with the boots on the ground. What we're referring to is that Beverly Byrd was one of our featured authors at the African American Read-In in February, that was held at the African American Museum in Dallas. And it kicked off with the line dancing, with the boots on the ground line dancing. And so when she mentioned that she likes to dance, I teased her about the boots on the ground and asked if that's one of your dances.
It's a really cool dance, though. I do like it. I do like it.
Okay, but let's get back to the book. And y'all, thank you all for joining us, for tuning in. We are discussing Beverly Byrd's new book. This is her first one. A Black Woman's Radiology Revolution. She's in the healthcare field, and she's been in the field for over 40 years. And so her title is Let Them See You Sweat, a DEI perspective. So she's talking about the sweat equity she put in on her job, and she's giving her DEI perspective. But okay, and you know what? Real quick, we're almost done. We're gonna do a reading, and then we're gonna talk a little bit more about the DEI thing. Um, so the evolution of mental health support in your career, and so what are you saying? What are you saying here? So they provided more resources for.
I believe that mental health in general, just not specifically for my career, but just in general, has evolved, and people have been more really inclusive into acknowledging that.
Oh yes, yes, yes.
The
Yes.
different forms.
Yeah, it used to be a stigma to it, but now
Yes,
we encourage.
we encourage. We encourage.
You
now.
are encouraged to go get some help to deal with all this because you know life be life and life is
That's my
life
word.
ain't no joke.
Those are my words. Life is life.
Yeah, I mean, so it's a lot going on in the world, and people are very anxious and just got a lot going on, and you know, you hear about some of these stories out here, and you know, I was just reading about a lady who in Detroit with her 3 kids sleeping outside, and the 3 of them froze to death, and the daughter survived and was able to go get help, but it's like
Can you imagine trauma
her
for
mind,
that child?
you know,
Yeah.
like and the child, you know, and just I mean, but the parents' mind, I mean, you have to something's going on there, you know, so we encourage, mental support, especially now, is necessary.
And there are so many resources out there. I've had family members of mine or friends of mine call me and go, I'm having a rough day. I feel like I'm having a meltdown today. I'm like, okay, I'm at work, but let me give you a phone number to call, right? There are so many 1-800 numbers out there that you can call for help. And that's one of the things I do, and I have to boast and brag about my book. I do offer 27 actionable resources. So my book is not just a book about my experiences. My book offers resources. My book offers solutions.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. And so you have those numbers listed in your book?
I throughout there's a chapter or so, and it may be this chapter that we're talking about, this mental health chapter, yes. That resources are listed for DEI programs or mental health programs or, numbers and resources to get help.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. So it's not only a memoir, but it's also a resource guide.
It's a resource guide. Yeah.
Wonderful. Dang it, some bridges are meant to be burned.
At the end of the day,
and I have to agree with that. Some bridges you don't want to cross them.
You don't want to go back. It's kind of like a bad relationship. Like, no, dude,
burn the bridge.
Burn the bridge. Burn the bridge. I'm done.
They usually say don't burn your bridges. But some
bridges need to be burned. It's like, no, you can pay me to go back over there. I don't care how much y'all offered me. You can't pay me to go back to that job.
You're right. So we got to explain that one. We already know. The healthcare disparity crisis and Project 2025. Talk about it.
The biggest thing that comes to mind is when I talk about, take for instance, my dad, 88-year-old veteran. He lives in rural Oklahoma. There is a clinic that is literally 4 blocks from his house that he and other residents can't go to for just like an urgent care type service. I mean, we're talking rural places. In these rural places, sometimes you get injured out there doing farm equipment or whatever. You got to be your own doctor, or you got an ache or a pain or something. And the next hospital
30 miles away.
Okay. So, but here my dad is. And one day he was having some issues and he called me. He says, I'm having, this is going on. And I said, you know what, I'm going to call that clinic, that the new clinic. They just built this clinic less than 2 years ago, brand new clinic. I said, I'm going to call them and see if they'll see you. And he says, well, Bev, I don't think they're going to see me, but you can call them and see, I'm like, okay. So I call over there and sure enough, I was told that if he gave up his primary care doctor, mind you, he's had his primary care doctor for 60 years. And chose their primary care physician, that he could be seen and treated as a patient. I'm like, this is talk about waste, fraud, and abuse. We're talking rural Oklahoma or rural town somewhere, anywhere, that there's a whole clinic there.
And you can't provide service unless you make them your primary.
Exactly. And that was what I was told. So lo and behold, Miss Bev, she gonna get on that computer. She starts writing the senator of Oklahoma, the governor of Oklahoma. You know what I'm saying? Nothing has changed yet, but I've at least voiced my concerns.
Because that's a problem.
That is a problem.
When you're there, you should be able to provide services to whoever come in, do what you can, and then let them have their problem. I mean,
exactly. I mean, not that they probably wouldn't see somebody if somebody came through the door and was actively, ill or
they probably wouldn't. They'd be like, "Are you? Am I your doctor?"
You never know.
Okay, you need to call 911. We're gonna let the ambulance come get you and take you to the hospital 30 miles away.
And no doubt, this clinic is receiving state and federal funds. It's like, why can't the people of the town at least have the access to urgent care? You don't have to bring that person in as a patient that you're going to see regularly, right? And we're not even talking about it being the Indian hospital, because so the Indian hospital from my dad is 20 or something miles away, right? Which that's another struggle that I talk about in my book.
It's an Indian hospital.
Indian hospitals are primarily hospitals that are designated for
reservations and things.
Yes, they can be on reservations, but they're for patients of American Indian descent, right?
Only?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. Okay. And so if you have your Indian card, you can go to these Indian hospitals and be treated for practically free or little of nothing. But that wasn't even an option for him. I'm like I said, this clinic was 4 blocks away and brand new. And they were like, no, we don't see patients like that. And I'm like, you mean to tell me you receive federal and state money and you can't see someone who is having leg pain on the basis of a urgent care type, No, unless he wants to come here and start seeing us for his primary care. Like, this makes no sense. None.
Well, I hope they fix that.
Me too. But
that's crazy. Okay. Any other thoughts on the Project 2025 and the healthcare disparity that you want to share?
Well, as if you've been watching the news, and you've seen how this administration is targeting our Medicare and Medicaid, but here's the thing that I think a lot of times is the Medicare, Medicaid, sometimes group of folks, demographic in our country are the group of folks that have always been targeted. It doesn't matter which affiliation it is, So, we had the Obamacare that wanted to come in and, and make things better, allegedly for a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people had access to health care that they were not inclined to have before. Mm-hmm. But it looks like this administration may not be. They may just want to take it from everybody. It's just like they're Medicare, Medicaid. Sometimes they can't win for losing.
Mm. Wow. Okay. Well, that was interesting. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
Did you want to do a reading for us?
Let's see. I have one page that and then
talk to us about you may or may not get his feather, but she got this beautiful feather in her book. I love it.
The feathers are only available for in-person events. I have T-shirts, I have sweatshirts, and there are certain things that I only have at live events. Mm-hmm. But the feather has significance for me. I also talk about how in 1979, the Creek Indian Nation, Muskogee Creek Indian Nation, decided to disenfranchise all Creeks of African American descent or African descent, which included my grandmother, right?
Wow. Okay, because we didn't really get much into your early beginnings.
Right.
Okay, so
Right.
you grew up in Oklahoma. You're from
From
Muskogee.
Wewoka, Oklahoma.
Uh-huh.
But yeah. So my example with that is again
What's the name of your town?
Wewoka.
We woke up.
Wewoka.
Y'all, we woke up.
We
Okay.
woke up. We woke up, Oklahoma. It's on the map now. But
Yeah, we woke.
you
We
know,
woke
yeah,
up.
because again, it goes back to that sense of belonging. My family had a sense of tradition. It had a sense of belonging. It had a sense of culture with that whole
Creek Nation.
Creek Nation piece of it. And then when you're being told by a government that we're no longer honoring a treaty, we're no longer going to provide you with services, or we're no longer going to provide you with that monthly check, your whole world kind of just crumbles. Like how do you tell a whole group of people, yeah, no, you don't belong here anymore? When when we were right there, the Trail of Tears, we were right there with you side by side. And it's just like my family has been in litigation with this for I don't know, decades now, maybe 20 years,
Oh
trying
wow.
to get our rights back as citizens of Muskogee Creek Nation. Yeah.
And they did that before Trump even was.
Before Trump, yeah. This was like 1979 when my family was disenfranchised. Yeah. So, but the
So
litigation.
what do you think? I'm just trying to get understanding as to why. Like what? Why? What? Besides, I mean, what? Why would they
Well,
do that?
again, greed to keep the money. I mean, like if
Oh, so
you know,
all okay.
my
Well, I mean, how do you determine?
because the treaty specifically
But I'm just
says
trying. Okay, so if your grandmother's Creek, is she Creek and Black?
yes.
So I'm just trying to figure out how do you, like you said, how do you just cut off a group of people? I'm trying to. So if she was Creek and White, would she be okay?
Yes, because when I'm telling you, whenever the treaty was made, it didn't give reference to specific white or European or any other Caucasian races. It gave specific reference to Black and Creek, right? So if you were of African American descent and Creek, the treaty was put in place for specifically for those groups of people.
Mm-hmm.
But then in 1979, they said, well, we don't want to do that. You have to be full blood, basically, and it's a blood quantum that we're going to go by now. And so we're like, but my grandmother has her roll number. She has a card. She, she was receiving money until 1979. My grandmother even received 180 acres as an 11-year-old child. I think it was. I don't may not have I may not have that number right, but I know it was 180 acres. Where's this land now? Well, I don't know. I have no idea.
That's
So
interesting. That's
yeah.
very interesting. I wonder who got her land. I mean, did she?
Well,
You
like she
didn't.
has some of it. I still have the homestead still there. There's still some places that when I grew up as a child, running up and down those dirt roads.
So do you have family there that's on her land, or the family all kind of dispersed? Like, is
Well,
it?
we're kind of dispersed because you got to remember, 1979. My grandmother passed, and with passings, who if you don't keep the property up, and there's it's just like any other.
And the state comes in and do this.
Yeah, well, the taxes are being paid on what the homestead, right? What she did wound up with and didn't get cheated out of, at some point. But as far as the actual properties itself being livable or anything like that, no, it's just land that we continue to pay the taxes on to ensure that it stays in our family.
Okay. Interesting. I just find those stories fascinating as well.
Yeah.
Just the whole legacy of it all.
There is a whole story about my grandmother and grandfather. MSNBC has done a couple stories about my grandmother. Yeah. So I kind of talk about that in the book as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. What chapter is that in? Like that dealing with the journey part?
I don't remember which chapter.
Okay. Well, that could go with the battle, my rights. That could go in a lot of those chapters.
Yeah, it could. I don't remember exactly.
Or dang it, no.
And one other thing, I'll tell you one other fascinating fact about me and my lineage. you remember Pearl Harbor,
Mm-hmm.
right? So Dory Miller, I found out, is a distant relative of mine on my dad's side.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
fighting and being excluded, I guess is just in my family history, But interjecting ourselves and saving the day, that was what Miller was about that day. Yeah.
Wow.
Had it not been for the gunnery that so we talk about that intersectionality of exclusion and inclusion and having to sometimes push forward and be resilient and say, hey, you're not going to deny me what I know is rightfully mine,
Mm-hmm.
or
What I
here,
can do.
right, and here, because you can and I know I can, we're not going to sink the ship, right? Look, so I'm gonna take the gun and do what I need to do. So but there's a just a relevant a whole plethora of family history that I've been finding with my search through ancestry. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this has been fascinating. Did you want to do a reading, or how you
No,
feeling?
we're good. We actually don't have to. I think we've pretty much covered
We
it.
pretty much covered. We covered a lot.
We covered a lot. Covered a lot.
We covered
I
a
don't want
lot.
to give away the
But
whole.
but yeah, this is fascinating. This will make a great book club read as well. Just a whole discussion of it, and I'm sure Beverly, you could invite her in on Zoom or to your event, and she will come and even meet and greet with you. But this is a great read, and it's so inspiring. I think I'm just inspired by just your resilience and and just your story on how you just overcame, and you're still there.
Absolutely.
So
Still,
the story continues.
the story continues. The story continues.
Yeah.
And I think that's the story of a lot of people. I mean, especially successful people. And we all measure success differently. But at the end of the day, if we are staying consistent and we are staying resilient, and
Mm-hmm.
we take the time to reflect and inspire along the way,
Right.
I think that we have done a job well done.
Now, and I think I asked you this. I don't know if I did or not, but okay, just real quick. Your inspiration for this book is
Is because I lived it. My kids lived it. It was something that after years of workplace discrimination, microaggressions, and just the fight for basic respect, I realized that my story wasn't just mine, but it was a story that others had, and
and
that it needed to be said and
and shared.
and shared.
And
Yeah,
and encouraged.
and encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
That was my goal here,
Is to encourage.
to encourage, empower, and also give those resources.
Okay. So let people know how they can find you.
Basically, you can find me on social media, Facebook at Beyond DEI Equitably with Beverly Byrd. Or you can find me on Instagram at DEI underscore definitely earned it definitely earned underscore it.
Okay, because
um,
she put in the sweat,
yes.
blood, and tears to
Eh,
get to where she is.
Absolutely. And you can buy the book here locally at the Doc Shop, the Doc Bookshop.
Yes.
It is in store and you can get it. When you
Mm.
buy the book in store, you will get your blue gold leaf feather. Yes, ma'am, sir.
Yes, and
Yes.
also, if you're not local, this book is sold wherever books are sold. I mean, because you can get this book pretty
Barnes
much
and Noble.
everywhere, everywhere,
Yeah,
everywhere books are sold.
everywhere
So
books are sold.
we want you to get the book. If you're not able to get it from the Doc Bookshop, of course, we want you to go to it. You can go to our online. If you can't come, you can always go to the docbookshop.com and order the book. But whatever you do, get the book. That's the bottom line. And thank you all for tuning in on our different channels. We appreciate you. This has been a wonderful conversation. Another one with a great author, Beverly Byrd. Remember her, Beverly Byrd, and remember her beautiful book. I think I got this right when you come in because I just love the cover. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Who did your art? How'd you come in?
It was I gave my designer the information, and after he asked me a series of questions, what did I want it to the cover to exemplify. And I said, I wanted to show my struggles. I wanted to show my family history. I wanted to show me as an individual. And when I look at her, she's straightforward, facing forward. She's focused, you
Mm-hmm.
know, the feathers, you know, my Creek heritage, you know, the sweat falling behind her because she's put that behind her because she's so focused. She knows where she's going. She knows what she wants, and she
Mm-hmm.
knows who she can help, who, you know, and she's not crying. I've had people look at it and go, why is she crying? I'm like, she's not crying. I promise you, she's not crying. Have you ever seen sweat fall behind somebody's ears? And then the gears, it looks like gears, you know, on the side because her
Mm-hmm.
mind's just going, you know, to the places of how do I make this just? How do I make this equitable? How do I help people feel like they belong?
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Beverly.
You're welcome. Thank you, Miss
This has
Donna. I
been a great
appreciate it.
conversation. All right. So until next time, just keep reading.